second week of December, which means Christmas could be coming early to Red Sox fans once again. The winter meetings are here in MLB, and this is where the Red Sox make the moves. Chris Sale, Garrett Crochet, Carlos Narvaez, Tyler Thornburg. This is where the Red Sox do business. And when the Red Sox are doing business, there's only one person we can bring onto this show, and that is from Sports Illustrated, Jackson Roberts. Jackson, great to have you back on the show. And so much of this has been Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso and to some extent Kyle Schwarber and Joe Ryan. But now the rumors are heating up for Pete Alonso. You wrote about it for Sports Illustrated, and it brings up kind of an interesting deal here where Pete has the third most home runs of anybody in MLB the last 6 years, only behind Judge and Schwarber. Decent reputations as power hitters. Red Sox need one of those from the right-handed side. Pete Alonso fits that, but you will have Tristan Casas coming back. He plays first base. How does this work?
I mean, I think it works well if they both stay. And first of all, if you're getting a Pete Alonso, your priority is obviously getting him 155, 160 games, whatever it may be. But Tristan Casas, I mean, it's not like he's some sort of Gold Glover at first base. And if he is, back in the fold, healthy by spring training, ready to go for the full season and not traded, which is something we have to at least consider as a background possibility here, then I think it works well for him to get off his feet. They really could do something close to a 50-50 split. And you get Casas out of the lineup against lefties potentially, if that's something they're still interested in doing. You get Alonso just some days off his feet because he's going to be 32 next year. And it's obviously he's not a Gold Glover either. So I feel like by the time the playoffs roll around, if you're lucky enough to be there, that kind of split first base DH situation could give them the best chance of getting both guys there healthy. And granted, there's a lot that still has to shake out. You have no idea if Alonso is going to sign there. You have no idea really of anything. I think it's a much more, it's an easier fit than it would be with Schwarber for that reason if Casas is still going to be in the picture. At the same time, I mean, I think the larger point here is we've passed the point where Casas has to be taken into account. Right. He's kind of like that secondary piece that once you figure out what big bat you're able to sign, then you sort of figure out how Casas fits into the whole picture. But I do think it's interesting the way it could work with Alonso and Casas potentially being kind of the best thing for each other.
Yeah, you kind of led me into it with that last part there of Casas, homegrown, developed talent, right? Certainly that was a much bigger deal for the Red Sox 3 years ago when he came up than it is now, because now they can do it. They've got a bunch of these guys. So what do you think the patience level is for Tristan Casas? I know there's not like a robust trade market for him or anything, but he's probably going to start the year in AAA coming off this injury. He gets injured every year. What do you think the patience level for Tristan Casas is within this organization?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's even a question of patience at this point. I think he has to earn his way back into the equation. I think they're operating right now. They said, how much they still believe in him at the end of the season, but they're out there right now looking for other big bats to sign. They batted him fourth on opening day. If he's fully healthy on opening day, as you alluded to, we don't know whether he's going to be in the majors or AAA, and certainly he wouldn't be batting fourth if he was in the majors. So I think he has to, be granted the opportunity to get back into the equation, because if they get an Alonso, they get a Schwarber, he's definitely, a candidate to be shipped out for a pretty minimal return. But if he stays, then, there's still talent there. I think it's obvious from the 24 homers and the third place rookie of the year finish he had 2 years ago that he could still be something good for this lineup, but he would have to earn his way back into the equation, I think, at this point.
And speaking back to, or linking it back to Pete Alonso here, it's felt pretty quiet on the Alonso front just overall in this offseason. Is that kind of the vibe you're getting? And why is it so quiet for a guy who just goes out and hits 35 plus homers every year?
If I were Pete Alonso, I would be fairly upset about that. I think that's a reasonable characterization, but teams don't love the profile of a guy in his 30s, first base only, leaning towards DH, right-handed bat with kind of, if his bat speed's not already diminishing a little bit, then it certainly would project to in the years to come. So it's a case of like, you don't get paid for the player you have proven yourself to be in the past. You get paid based on future projections. And that being said, I still think Pete Alonso has a great case to get obviously $100 million, but close to that $150 million range. And I think part of the issue too is that once again, the Mets, I mean, this is not like speculation, but just based on like reading the tea leaves, I don't see the Mets being like super gung-ho about a reunion here. It seems like they might even be more focused on trying to get Edwin Diaz back right now than they are on trying to make sure Alonso comes back. And everything we've heard about the Mets is defense this offseason. So I think it'd be a mistake for them to let Alonso walk, but I wouldn't be complaining if he ends up in Boston, certainly. So I think we wait to see how this week plays out. You know, tonight could be a big night. You know, Pete Alonso, I'm not saying he could sign tonight, but like I wouldn't rule out the possibility. And at the very least, I would think that during the winter meetings this week, we would start to get more of an idea of which teams are, you know, real players for Alonso and, you know, potentially going to prioritize him, because I think this is kind of the point in the offseason where like teams tip their hand a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll start to find that out this week.
Writing that down. Jackson Roberts, Pete Alonso signs tonight.
Yeah, that was what I said. Yeah.
Reported, ready to go. Yeah. Just in case, Jackson. And you talk about it. We've talked about the defense kind of ad nauseum when it comes to the Pete Alonso talks, right? Of like, he's not a great defender. You know, is he a complete liability?
No.
That seems a bit far, right? He's not. And he's at first base, you know, and this is what's so funny is like, you know, the Red Sox have vastly needed to improve their defense the last couple of years. Obviously, the outfield defense has gotten a lot better. Infield defense took some strides last year with Trevor Story being healthy for a whole season. But, like, I think you're at a point where you're just like, man, I don't care. He plays every game. You know what I mean? He plays every game. He's going to be out there. He's not a complete albatross. Like, let's get that bat in the lineup. And again, you know, we talk about how quiet it's been. The projection for him, Jackson, 4 by 110. I know it's a guy in his 30s and defensively limited, like we just said, but that feels like a bargain. You know, when you consider that Kyle Schwarber is older, and I get he hits more home runs, but he's projected at like some people are projecting him $50-60 million higher than that. Like that, would that mean a bargain if the Red Sox can get him for around 4 and 110?
I think if Pete Alonso signs for less than 5 years anywhere, that team is getting a bargain. You know, it's a little bit of push-pull because how are we structuring these deals? And ultimately, I think if it's longer than 3 years, then he's probably not doing the whole opt-out thing. But I think he ends up being really disappointed. And I think I had mentioned in the specific piece about Alonso today that I don't think anyone's getting him for 4-110 right now. I think that would have to be like a late January, early February special again, kind of like last offseason. So it would be nice for the Red Sox to get to that point. But the flip side of that is if you wait for that deal to come all the way down, then you might be missing out on other opportunities. You might be missing out on a Ketel Marte trade. You might be missing out on big trades to upgrade the rotation. So I wouldn't necessarily wait around for Alonso's value to drop. If a 5-year deal is what it takes and Craig Breslow has identified him as the guy he wants, then I would give him 5 years right now because you need to build out this entire thing. You need to know pretty much who's going to play every infield position besides shortstop. You don't have any of that locked down right now. And if you can say, okay, Alonso is our at least part-time, maybe full-time starter at first, that lets you figure out the other two positions.
Okay, so is there like a term or a dollar number where you, Jackson Roberts, GM, is saying, that's too much for Pete. We need him, but that's too much.
5-150 feels a little bit aggressive. 5-140 seems kind of reasonable, like somewhere right in that range. 5-130 seems like a pretty good bargain, honestly, still, because that's a lower AAV than that 4 for 110. So if the breaking news update drops tonight and it says Pete Alonso 5 for 140 to Boston, then I would feel like that's kind of like the sweet spot for what it might take. But again, nobody knows what sorts of deferrals and other sorts, like, you know, you can backload these deals. all these things to try and get it under the CBT threshold that the Red Sox impose on themselves, I think is, you could see that number changing by a few million in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. And this is obviously good to be talking about after the last couple of years. The Red Sox does feel like they're going to spend some money here. They've certainly eased their way into that over the last couple of seasons. Last year, a big extension and a big signing with Bregman. Because the last couple of years, you've heard it a lot, I'm sure, on Twitter especially, of like, the Red Sox are becoming the Pirates. Well, that might mean you get Kyle Schwarber, because apparently the Pittsburgh Pirates, yes, those Pittsburgh Pirates have offered a multi-year deal. I would hope it's multi-year, over $100 million for Kyle Schwarber. Doubt that's going to happen. Doubt that comes to fruition. But just that fact that the Pirates are putting their balls on the table like that, allegedly, what does that mean for everyone else in the market?
I don't know. I genuinely
player.
don't really know. Like the Pirates, it's nice to hear your name like in the headlines if you're the Pirates, obviously. And I think,
hey, we tried. That's what they'll say. We tried.
Yeah,
we tried.
That's the thing is I just want to know what their biggest signing actually is. To be frank, I don't care if they did or didn't offer $80 million for Josh Naylor. And if they came in way under market for Josh Naylor anyway, they probably aren't coming in at market value for Schwarber. I would guess they put in like a Pete Alonso offer that we were just talking about. I would guess they did like 4 for 110, which is kind of just like, if I were Schwarber and I heard that, I'd be like, thanks, but like you kind of wasted my time. So
So the report says significantly over 100 million, and that in my head, I'm like, that's not over 120.
Yeah,
they would have said.
And then
120.
they speculated 116 exactly.
Like we're talking 107 to 114 or 16 or somewhere is technically, I think, what they're getting at there.
Yeah. So are they getting like Jorge Polanco? Are they getting Eugenio Suarez? I think that's like kind of the tier of free agent that we're talking about the Pirates can land. And, maybe you can build a nice little offense around one of those guys and Brian Reynolds' resurgence and some combination of Joey Bard, O'Neill Cruz, and the password. So I'm excited to see where it lands for them because obviously Skeens is incredible. And, that division's, it's got some good teams in it, but it's never been like, dominated by one powerhouse. So I'm here for it, but I'm not believing I see the Pirates spend big money until the big money is, signed, checked, and cashed in.
Oh man, it would be fun for him to play there though. And in that ballpark, my God, that could be. I mean, he can mash him out of any ballpark. But yes, the aesthetics, the old heads, they'd love it. Kyle Schwarber in the pill pot hat, like that'd be great. Looking at the Red Sox infield, last time we had you on, we talked about Bo Bichette. That was a name that was being tossed around. Now it's Ketel Marte. We've heard that kind of off and on, but it sounds more credible in the last couple of days here that there's some Red Sox interest. How do you like Ketel, first off? And second, how exactly are the Red Sox looking at this infield in 26? I know it's different because Bregman is still up in the air, but do you think there are other moves to be made on this infield?
I definitely think that if Bregman comes back, you're making at least one other move, and same with an Alonso signing. I don't think you're just grabbing one of those free agents and maybe it's one of the, I think a dream scenario would be like an Alonso plus Ketel Marte or maybe a Bregman plus Ketel Marte, but it wouldn't shock me if it's like Marte and Okamoto or Okamoto and Bregman or something like that. But I don't think it's just one move. And I don't know. The Marte stuff is like, it's kind of similar. I'll believe he's getting traded like when there's more about it. Like I could see it happening because obviously there was some like clubhouse stuff going on there alongside just the Diamondbacks being in a little bit of a position to trade from their offensive surplus to get some pitching. But at the same time, like he's a top 15 position player in baseball at a minimum if he's healthy. And it's such an affordable contract that I'm not like locking myself into that happening. And we just heard today from Rob Bradford that the Red Sox haven't really like made an advance on Ketel Marte or made any progress there. So it's a nice, like, it's nice to have like kind of on the back burner as a remote possibility. But from the Red Sox perspective, I'm certainly like much more heavily counting on a move in the Bregman and or Alonso realm of happening than I am of Ketel Marte coming to Boston.
And Bregman apparently not as robust a market as last year. Tigers are kind of balking on that a little bit. So this could be a kind of waited out. This could be another February signing. Is that kind of the way you're feeling?
I don't know about February because I don't think Bregman wants it to drag out that long, but I'm leaning towards like only one or two like major signings happening at the winter meetings this week. I still think it's going to be a big week for, teams tipping their hands as to what they're actually trying to accomplish. I think it's going to be a big week for either actual trades happening or big time trade rumors. But the free agent market, like if you told me just Schwarber or just Kyle Tucker signed this week, then I'd be like, all right, I see that. And at the same time, I'm like, can the Red Sox like just tell us like what the number one thing they're trying to accomplish is? Like, that's what I think we can get out of this week. And on the Bregman front, like, yeah, the Tigers not only do they not seem that interested, because he did tell them like no to their face last offseason, but they locked themselves into a $22 million deal this year for Gleyber Torres after he had like a good first half and a pretty mediocre second half. So I don't know, like there's all these, very respectable like reporters who are saying like teams would never do the qualifying offer if they weren't excited about the guy signing it. This year, I'm not sure that was the case. I feel like the Brewers, Tigers, maybe even the Cubs with Imanaga, they got themselves into these, and the Yankees with Trent Grisham, handed out these qualifying offers that they maybe wish they could take back. So interested to see how that affects the rest of the offseason.
Me too. And this is where it gets fun with the winter meetings. This is where it gets cooking. You just mentioned some of the things to look out for. Jackson Roberts of the Red Sox on SI. Certainly, he will have you covered throughout the whole week. Before we let you go, though, what does a successful week look like for the Red Sox? Because it might not be big money signings.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because it doesn't necessarily equate to like Pete Alonso putting on a Red Sox cap or Alex Bregman, etc. But I think as long as we learn that they're not out on the likes of, all the above, Schwarber, Bregman, Alonso, as long as we know that they're not like second place or worse in all three of those sweepstakes, like you can at least keep hope alive on the free agent front. And I do think that like, by the end of the week, you want to see them make at least one more move. I don't necessarily like that could be another trade. It could be, like in a blockbuster sense, like I still think a starting pitching trade is on the table if they're giving up like younger starting pitchers and or Brian Bayo, who just today I was seeing like beat reporters are starting to come around to the idea that Brian Bayo could, in theory, be traded if they're, grabbing a better starting pitcher than Bayo. So either you sign a big free agent, obviously the weeks of success, you trade for a number two starter of the likes of Freddie Peralta, Joe Ryan, etc., the weeks of success. Otherwise, I feel like you can't call the week a failure if, Schwarber and Alonso and Bregman remain on the table. But I just think we'd like to start seeing the pieces start moving on the chessboard.
I know I said one last question, but you piqued my interest in there with the Bayo talk. What would that look like from your eyes? Would that be like, hey, we'll put Bayo in a trade for Joe Ryan rather than Peyton Tolley or Connolly Early because he's got a good, nice contract, that kind of Braves model contract? Is that the kind of deal that he goes in?
Yes, I don't know if it would be for Joe Ryan specifically. Yeah. I'm so confused about what the Twins are trying to accomplish right now. I really am. So I'm kind of going to leave them out of it for a sec. But the one that intrigues me is Cole Reagans. And I wonder if, because the Royals aren't spending no money and they want to contend right now. And I like, if I were them, I might just take Cole Reagans off the table completely. But clearly they have a desperate need for outfielders and not much money to do it with in free agency. So Bayo plus Duran for Cole Reagans, like I'm intrigued to say to say the minimum. It may be like a total non-starter for either team, and I'm certainly not like reporting that that's in the works, but we know those two teams are at least talking to each other about Duran, and we know the Red Sox have been like stingy about it, which probably means they're saying like we want Reagans or we don't want to talk. So just putting two and two together, that would be the type of trade that I would be thinking about if Bayo has any chance of being moved.
That is some big brain right there. That is some big brain stuff. And I love Reagan's. We did it. We went over some of the mock trades Bleacher Report put out the other day. And like, obviously there's the health concern now, you know, the rotator cuff off of last year. And he didn't, he doesn't start full seasons, but the year he did, he friggin' shoved, man. And his baseball savant page looks like communist Russia. It's so red. He's so good. He is such a power strikeout pitcher. To have him behind Garrett Crochet would be phenomenal.
Dude, last year it was like Crochet and Cole Reagans were both plus 350 or whatever in the Cy Young odds. Like they were basically viewed the exact same way coming to last year. If anything, you would have said like Reagans, because he had 2 more years of control and was coming off a 4th place Cy Young finish, you would have said he was like, you know, the more sure thing. So I know this was a weird year. I'm not worried about the ERA at all because his FIP was in the low 2s and he struck out a million guys. But the health is obviously a concern. But yeah, I mean, if the Red Sox could somehow get their hands on him, we'd be dancing.
Oh man. Sonny Gray is your 3-starter after that? Fine. Sure. Go ahead. That you can still match up in a playoff series with pretty much anybody. The only team in this league I'd be concerned about pitching wise would be the Yankees. So that would be a whole lot of fun. Jackson, I'm just going to say it with the right color hair dye, you could probably fill in for Tyler Childers if he needed to one day.
Oh, appreciate
just
that.
saying, like, a little touch of red, just comb it over to the side. I'm digging the hat. Like, I think you can do that. That could be a moneymaker for you.
My dad is a ginger. And if I ever grow the beard out, it's reddish, but at the same time, my girlfriend tells me I'm going gray on the sides all the time. So I don't know if that's ever happening for me.
Look, that's just showing how wise you are with the gray.
Appreciate that.
Sides. And you can all see how wise he is on Red Sox on SI. Jackson, it's been too long. I so appreciate you coming on, and certainly we'll have to check in. Maybe it's this week if there's a big deal, but we'll have to check in sometime soon on what the Red Sox are cooking here. Appreciate your time.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Anytime. There he goes. Jackson Roberts of Red Sox on SI. Seriously, I messaged him today. I was like, I've just caught up. I've caught up with everything going on in the weekend because that's what I do, man. Like every day when things are hot, and every week I'm checking Red Sox on SI and reading Jackson's stuff just to get up on all the rumors in this offseason. So I highly, highly advise you do the same. But let me know what you think. What would be a successful Red Sox winter meetings for you? Do you want Pete Alonso? Would you be willing to trade Brian Bayo for Cole Reagans? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we come at you live every weekday, noon Eastern time on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well.